Colts Texans divisional matchup here is the next game that I want to get to. CJ Stroud and the Texans, coming off a loss where not a lot was going right on the offensive side of the ball. It was a close game with the Green Bay Packers, and it was a really good game. Very clearly, two of the top 8, 5, whatever you want to say, teams in the NFL, just two really good football teams. And Packers come out on top, but it was a tough day at the offense for the Houston Texans overall.
See what you did there. See what you did there.
There you go. You see the vision. The Colts now going to Houston. How do we feel about this one? What's the matchup that matters here for either the Texans to bounce back or the Colts to continue their winning ways this season?
Well, judging from what was so successful for the Green Bay Packers last week against the Texans, I think it's this Indianapolis 4-man rush versus the Houston O-line and CJ Stroud, because what was so interesting about what Jeff Hafley and the Green Bay defense did against CJ Stroud was they were able to get him with a lot of simulated pressures. They didn't actually blitz him very often. Stroud was only blitzed on 17% of the plays that he was pressured on in Green Bay. And that is kind of what threw him for a loop. And that's what was so effective. It wasn't the blitz or even actual pressure. It was just what they were threatening to do. So that's something that maybe can be used as a blueprint. And whether that was more of the fault of the offensive line kind of being spooked by it, or CJ Stroud, which I tend to think it's the former because I do believe in CJ Stroud. And I just think that, again, we're still talking about a second-year player here. Maybe, he needs a little bit more experience against seeing, the tells of certain guys that end up blitzing and all that other stuff. But I think Indianapolis can be very effective if you just kind of threaten the blitz or threaten pressure, because it worked out for Green Bay so much this last game. And whether that was a chess match or not on the behalf of Jeff Hafley, we'll get to that when we get to Green Bay's game. But I think that is a way that Indianapolis could potentially be successful.
Yeah, it felt like when I was rewatching that Texans game. Yeah, I mean, CJ's statistics weren't great in that game, but he wasn't missing by much.
No.
He was missing by a little, but it was a lot of stuff was still there for him to complete passes and play well. I think it was like that Josh Allen game where he was, 9 for 30, where you go, okay, well, basically everything that could not have gone well in that game just didn't. The ball did not bounce their way at all. I think CJ will be fine, and I think we'll be good to go here. I'm really interested to see how they bounce back, particularly when it comes to the deep passing game. And that's my matchup that matters here. It's the Texans wide receivers and the deep passing game versus the Colts cornerbacks in this one. CJ Stroud, 71.1 passing grade on passes of 15 yards or more over the last 2 weeks. So 71.1, 87.7 on those same throws weeks 1 through 5. Now, what's the difference here? Nico Collins. Nico Collins was in there for the first 5 weeks of the season, and CJ Stroud was a damn near elite passer when it came to throws 15 yards or more. Without Nico Collins over the last 2 games, he just has not been as confident opening it up and really succeeding with those deep passes. When you look at the Colts, Samuel Womack, 85.1 overall grade this season. Kenny Moore, 81.1. Jalen Jones, a 70.0. But I think Jalen Jones, it's been more up and down, but he has had performances where he has been really strong this season. So you've got a nice trio of corners here for the Indianapolis Colts, which I did not think that I would be saying going into the season. So kudos to them. They're playing really, really well. They have become a strength of this defense, in my opinion. It's a really tough test, but it is one without Nico Collins. So to me, this is a big like Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell game as well, where those guys got to show up even more so than what we have seen previously with Nico Collins' absence, because it is very clearly felt in this offense, particularly when you look at them pushing the ball deep down the field in the passing game. But what's your plus factor here for this one?
Again, another obvious one, which is Jonathan Taylor returned to the practice field this week. He was practicing on Thursday or Wednesday, I believe it was. I don't know if he's practicing again today, but if he returns to this Colts offense, that can just be a huge catalyst for production in general. We know what Jonathan Taylor is capable of, both on the ground and as a receiver out of the backfield. And he's got 11 rushes gaining 10 or more yards, 4 rushes gaining 20 or more yards this year. So that's something that you need. You need him back. You just that this offense cannot be productive, I don't think, without Jonathan Taylor. And that's the thing that is the definition of a plus factor, I suppose.
I agree with
What's
you
gonna
completely.
boost?
I think it has to be Jonathan Taylor, who's been
Yeah.
dealing with that ankle injury the whole season. And to me, I don't necessarily have, concrete numbers to back it up, but it's just too feast or famine for this offense without the
Right.
Jonathan Taylor. I think they have wanted Anthony Richardson to shoulder a little bit more of the offensive load since he has come back and Jonathan Taylor has been in and out, not really been in there. He's just not consistent enough. And so you're hoping that these deep passes from Anthony Richardson you can basically hit home runs enough to win the football game. And there's just not enough of an in between. And when Jonathan Taylor is out there, I feel like the efficiency there is so much higher. There's less pressure on Richardson to have to hit those deep passes, and instead they're the mainstay of the game plan, not like the complementary part of the game plan. So I agree with you completely. Jonathan Taylor has to be the plus factor in this game because there's just not enough balance on this offense, in my opinion, without him. And it's a situation where they're going up against a Houston Texans team that is looking to bounce back in a big way after a tough loss against Green Bay. So they're going to get Houston's best. And I don't know if they can really keep up in this game if Jonathan Taylor isn't the Jonathan Taylor we know he could be, even with him dealing with that ankle injury.